Stand by. Oh, what's up, smarty people? It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I always send you? DJLittleRock.com. One more time, DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote, and maybe you could have me at your next event. You know I like to party with the people. The people need to be entertained. Are you not entertained? Let me entertain you. This week's shows, I will be at the Rab in Convoy, Arkansas, Friday night. Yes, my regular Friday night gig, the Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam. Yes, I said karaoke. You're the stars of the show. Full bar, kitchens open, pool tables, pool tournament, Friday nights. So if you want to try your hand at playing pool and possibly make some money, I encourage you to check out the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. Be there. Come be the star of the show. Do it. Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast. It's called What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Saturday, March 12th, 2022. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, major assault on Kyiv could be imminent. Ukrainian military officials expressed concerns Saturday that Russia could be preparing to encircle Kyiv and launch a full-scale attack on the city. So far, Russian forces have only probed the capital's defenses. Satellite photos taken late Thursday morning showed the 40-mile Russian convoy of vehicles, tanks, and artillery outside of Kiev had split up and been redeployed. The convoy had been stalled for several days, with Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby speculating the delay was caused by, quote, logistics and sustainment challenges, end quote, and, quote, resistance from the Ukrainians, end quote, while others blamed cheap Chinese tires. But the Pentagon said Thursday that the columns has moved recently, with the lead vehicles now about 9 miles from Kyiv center. This is according to BBC and the Associated Press. Number 2, Texas Supreme Court rejects challenge to abortion ban. The Texas Supreme Court rejected a challenge to the state's Heartbeat Act, which bans abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy. On Friday, Steve Vladek, a law professor at University of Texas, said the court's decision, quote, closes the last back door, end quote, against legal challenges to the law. The Heartbeat Act was designed to escape judicial review in federal courts, as pre-viability abortion bans are considered unconstitutional under Roe v. Wade. The Texas law empowers private citizens to sue anyone who, quote, aids or abets, end quote, a woman in obtaining an abortion. Therefore, the Texas Supreme Court ruled the government and medical licensing officials cannot be sued over the law because they play no role in enforcing it. This is according to the New York Times and USA Today. Number 3, a lack of pandemic funding could leave the U.S. vulnerable, experts warn. Congress this week failed to approve additional funding to fight the COVID-19 pandemic, a decision experts warned could have, quote, potentially devastating consequences, end quote, in the future. Though the $1.5 trillion package to fund the government and also to send aid to Ukraine was passed, a measure to provide $15 billion in continued COVID-19 response funding was dropped from the bill. Quote, these legislators are lulled in some type of trance, thinking the pandemic is over, end quote, said Eric Topol of the Scripps Research Translational Institute. Quote, haven't we learned anything in 2 years? I'm dismayed and disquieted about this, and I'm hoping that there is going to be some remedy, end quote. This is according to Stat News and The Week. Number 4, Trump blocked from counter-suing rape accuser. Former President Trump former President Donald Trump is not allowed to countersue and seek financial damages from the writer who accused him of raping her in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room in the mid-1990s, a judge ruled Friday. U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan chalked up the former president's counterclaim against E. Jean Carroll to a, quote, bad faith, end quote, attempt at delaying the case, and said that even if Trump could countersue, proving his claims in court would be, quote, futile, end quote. Team Trump said it is, quote, disappointed, end quote, with the court's decision, but nonetheless looks forward to, quote, proving at trial that the plaintiff's claims have absolutely no basis in law or in fact, end quote. Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba, said in an email. This is according to Bloomberg and CNBC. Number 5, U.S. to scrap Russia's most favored nation trade status. President Biden on Friday called for an end to Russia's, quote, most favored nation, end quote, trade status, and said the European Union and G7 nations will be doing the same. Revoking the, quote, most favored nation, end quote, status would allow for new tariffs on Russia. Ultimately, the decision will require approval from Congress, although the president is unlikely to encounter resistance. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had also asked Congress over the weekend to move to revoke Russia's trade status. The U.S. will also ban imports of alcohol, seafood, and diamonds from Russia, Biden said. Earlier in the week, Biden banned the import of Russian oil. This is according to CNBC and CNN. Number 6, Asian Americans have been discriminated against by Virginia school system, federal judge says. U.S. District Judge Claude Hilton, who ruled last month that new admissions policies at a prestigious Northern Virginia magnet school constituted a illegal, quote, racial balancing, denied on Friday a request to delay the implementation of his ruling. Fairfax County Public Schools argued that they cannot adjust their admissions policies with selection for next year's class already underway, but Hilton said they have had more than enough time to come up with a backup plan. In an attempt to increase racial diversity at Thomas Jefferson High School for science and technology, the school board threw out the school's standardized admission test in 2020 and implemented a new system plaintiffs said discriminated against Asian American students. This is according to NPR. Number 7, Russia expands air war in Ukraine, with Russian ground forces continuing, quote, to make limited progress, end quote. According to Friday morning's assessment from Britain's Ministry of Defense, Russia is increasing its air assault on Ukrainian cities. And Friday morning, it expanded its targets to include the central eastern city of Dnipro and Ivano-Fivrinsk and Lutsk, both in western Ukraine. Russia said it struck military airfields in Lutsk and Ivano-Fivrinsk in, quote, high-precision, long-range attacks, end quote. And local officials said missiles did strike the airfield, or at least near them, killing several people. 3 Russian airstrikes were reported early Friday in Dnipro, killing at least 1 person. Ukrainian officials on Sunday said Russian forces were preparing to encircle Dnipro, an industrial hub on the Dnieper River. This is according to BBC and ITV. Number 8, Disney CEO apologizes for silence on Don't Say Gay bill. Disney CEO has apologized to staff for his earlier silence on Florida's controversial parental rights in education bill, referred to by its opponents as the, quote, Don't Say Gay, end quote, bill. In a letter to staff Friday, CEO Bob Chapek apologized for his decision not to speak out against the bill. which would ban schools from discussing sexual orientation or gender identity with younger kids until it had already been passed. Chapek also announced Disney would develop a, quote, new framework for our political giving, end quote, and will be temporarily, quote, pausing all political donations, end quote, in Florida. He previously said the company has donated to Republicans and Democrats who have, quote, taken positions on both sides of legislation, end quote. This is according to Variety and Deadline. Number 9, Google and Meta faced antitrust investigations by EU, UK over ad deal. Google and Meta are facing 2 new antitrust investigations over a secret and possibly illegal ad deal. European Union and UK regulators have opened antitrust investigations into the 2 companies centered around their 2018 quote, Jedi Blue, end quote, advertising deal. The European Commission alleged that a 2018 deal between Google and Meta, quote, may form part of efforts to exclude ad tech services competing with Google's open bidding program, and therefore restrict or distort competition in markets for online display advertising, end quote. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority opened a parallel probe into the companies. The deal is already under investigation in the United States. This is according to the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. Number 10, Bill Maher slams both parties for playing partisan politics with the war in Ukraine. Real-time host Bill Maher ended his show Friday night by slamming both parties for using Russia's invasion of Ukraine to score partisan points. Quote, new rule, don't make World War III all about you, end quote, Maher said. The only conclusion anyone seems to be drawing from the war in Ukraine, he claimed, is that, quote, everything proves what we've already believed, and everything goes back to the thing we already hate, end quote. Maher pointed out headlines that showed Republicans blaming President Biden for the war and Democrats blaming former President Donald Trump. He also quoted Biden's comparison of the invasion to the January 6th Capitol riot and Trump's insistence that the crisis was caused by, quote, a rigged election, end quote. This is according to Fox News and Real Time with Bill Maher. That's 10 things you need to know today for Saturday, March 12th, 2022. Thank you so much for listening and putting up with my stumbling. I'm just trying to fill my head with knowledge. And if you like the sound of my voice, maybe you'll come along with the journey. Won't you join me? Come and join me. If you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast. It's called What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for this edition of What Makes You Smarter. It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.